Welcome to the second chapter of the book of Second Peter. Peter now goes into more detail concerning these false prophets and teachers, and it begins um, again unto they. Now, in this chapter, we're going to be featuring particles as a part of speech. A particle is basically a word that is uh, uninflected. It has no you can't break it down like you can nouns, uh, pronouns into first, second, third person, and masculine, feminine. Uh, the cases and the nouns are verbs with declensions. Uh, these words are little small words that have one spelling or maybe an abbreviation, and they mean pretty much one or two things, and they're just put in to the text. They can be a negative or like a no or a conjunction and but uh, if these little small particle words, and they are highlighted in this dark blue. So but there's the for the they, but there existed againito they k pseudo prophete en to leo os ke en imin esonte pseudo didaskali itinis parisaxusin aresis apolias ke ton agorasanta avtus despotin ar numeni epagontas en eaftis tahinin apolion. But there also, uh, but there existed also, there's K, you'll see this almost every verse in the Bible, K, and or also, possibly even, but. Uh, it sort of depends on the English. Sometimes and just doesn't fit and you have to make it but or something like that. In this case, we have the but with the they, but there existed also, or there existed. You couldn't say and false prophets. It wouldn't sound right in English. But you can see down further that and is what it is. Then verse 2 too. So there existed also pseudoprophete. We have false prophet. The pseudo, we have pseudo at the first part of that word, and prophete are a prophet. It's a direct transliteration. False prophets among the people, leo, laity, as also among you there will be pseudodidaskali, false teachers. The pseudo is the same, the false, and didactics is teaching, has to do with teaching, and didaskali, teachers, false teachers, uh, ones who shall introduce privately destructive one to sex, aresis. We have a heresy, destructive sex. Now, what can these destructive sects be? It goes in and one denying two the three master for buying them, bringing upon themselves quick destruction. Uh, so denying the master, buying them, he's referring here, of course, to Jesus. The agora santa, agora is the place for purchasing things, buying things. The despotin, the despot, the ruler, master. And so they introduce these things, denying the master. We see uh, certain religions today in the United States that have Jesus. Yes, they don't deny that there's a Jesus, but they have him living in South America, and others, going to India, and all types of things that have been invented concerning Jesus that are extra biblical. And they come up with other books that says what Jesus was doing, or they will deny the power of Christ as divinity. And he was a great man, a prophet, but he wasn't divine. He wasn't of God. And others that teach that Jesus was not ever physical. He was more or less spiritual, and they get into these what they call scientific type heresies that are common in other religions, and uh, then others that, as I mentioned, claim that Jesus is not uh, God, that God, Yahweh, Jehovah, is uh, all there is, and that Jesus was a subordinate or an angel that was given a high ranking. These types of heresies, sects, heresies. I don't believe he's talking about the differences between Baptists and Lutherans and things like that, sectarianism, but they don't deny Christ. So here he's getting into one's denying Christ, and they're false prophets. We had the false prophets in the Old Testament, telling people what God said and he didn't say them. Of course, there are those that don't necessarily devise sects. They could be doing it for money on television or radio or whatever. Verse 2, Ke poli exakoluthisus avton, tes apolies, theus I othos tis aletheus, blasphemi thisate. And many pali, English derivatives, shall follow after them, the false prophets and teachers, in the destruction, through whom the odometer, the way of the truth, shall be blasphemed. There's the verb for blaspheme. Blaspheme, you can see the first part of this Greek word is identical. Shall be blasphemed. And so many will follow after these sects. And we see these religions of pseudo-Christian religions flourishing today, 2009, and people going after them. Verse 3, K and pleonexia plastis logis imas emporevsonte, is to krima ek pale uk argi, ke apolia avton u nistasi. K and by a desire for wealth, with shaped words, plastis, plastic, shaped, logis, words. They shall make trade of you. Emporev, sonte, the verb emporium is like an agora, someplace it's inside it. People sell things, making trade. For whom the judgment of old, the crima, crime is a judicial term in English, of old is not idle, and their destruction shall not slumber. So now he brings into the ones for a desire for wealth, with shaped words shall make trade of you. That sort of reminds me of some of the televangelists that you hear a little bit about Jesus and nothing hardly about the Word of God. Not that I'm throwing them all into that, but there are those, and then you hear a lot of breaks for money for their mission. And the desire for wealth, they use people by tangling up these words. Igar o theos angelon amartisanton uk ephisato ala sire sophu tartarosis paredoken iskrisin tetrimenus. For if God, theos, and there's a gar, it's another particle, far, generally always far. If God, one, spared not, two, angels, sinning angels, or angels of sinning, angelon, an angel, a direct transliteration. Allah, that one should have been highlighted there, 235. That's another particle. But, now see that but is different than they. But in chains of in the infernal region delivered them up, being kept for judgment. And it continues, but let's go and check out this two words I have underlined, zophu and tartarosis. The zophu the infernal region. In mythology, this was a place uh, of the dead. And the Tartarosus is, uh, I have region here, but it's actually a verb, but sent to Tartarus in chains of the infernal region, delivered them up for being kept for judgment. And we see in Job 40:20 about this Tartarus, and it's about under the beast. That's the column heading. And coming upon a chiseled mountain, he produces a cause for joy to the four-footed in the infernal region, Tartaro. And then in 41:32, under the dragon, it says, and the infernal region, Tartaron, of the abyss is as if a captive. He considers the abyss for a promenade. So these two places in Job, and then if you go into Revelations, we have also the beast and the dragon, just like it was here in chapter 40. We have the beast in 19:20, and it says, and the beast, Therion, was the same word, laid hold of. And with this one, the false prophet, the one performing the signs before him, in which he misled the ones receiving the imprint of the beast and the ones doing obeisance to his image. The two were thrown living into the lake of fire, burning with sulfur. And then we drop down to verse 20, verse 1. I saw an angel coming down from out of the heaven, having the key of the abyss. So now this ties into 41 of Job, chapter 41. And a great chain in his hand, and he seized the dragon, the ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, the one misleading the entire habitable world. So the dragon, the same word as in Job. And he bound him 1,000 years, and he cast him into the abyss, and locked and set a seal upon him, that he should not mislead many nations anymore. So this whole thing is Peter's talking about here, God not sparing the angels and sending them. We see that in Job, and that's where they were, and then in Revelations it goes into it even more in detail. And he continues, Ke archeu cosmu uk ephisato, ala ogdon noe dikesinis kirika ephilaxe, cataclysmon cosmo asavon epaxas. And the ancient world, the archeu, we have an archaeology studying old things, ancient cosmu, cosmos. He spared not, Allah, but, and there's a uk, that's not. He spared not. We have ok, sometimes it's u, and sometimes it's omega epsilon with a chi instead of the kappa, as it is here. They're all not. And me, ni, me ita. But kept the eighth of, kept Noah, the eighth proclaimer of righteousness, having brought the flood to the impious world. So we have here the kirika, we have the kerygma, part of theology that studies the preaching, and kept, aphilax, prophylactic, something that is in front that protects. Having brought cataclysmon, the flood. It's a cataclysm. It doesn't have the same meaning in English, but that's the English cataclysm came from this Greek word, the world. And then verse, so God spared Noah, but not the world. And then he's mentioning more or less that the people that are doing these things will not be spared either. Ke polis Sodomon, ke Gomoras, tephrosas, catastrophe, katekrinen, ipodigma melonton asavin, tethikos. And the polis, a metropolis of Sodom and Gomorrah, having reduced to ashes, he condemned by a final event. There should be a 1 there, and I missed that. Remember to fix that. 2:6. Having set an example for the ones about to ones being about to be impious. Uh, so uh, he well, and then he's switching over now from Noah and the flood and how they were destroyed into Sodom and Gomorrah, how they were condemned by the catastrophe, the final event. And 2:7, K dikeon lot kata ponumenon ipotiston athesmon en aselgia anastrophis erisato. And 1, he rescued. 2, righteous. 3, Lot, being harassed by. 5, the unlawful ones in lewdness of behavior. He was among the homosexuals that were doing their what homosexuals do, and when the angels came down, they tried to do it with the angels, and Lot was harassed by this behavior, but God rescued Lot, but destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And of course, Abraham argued over the destruction. Or would you destruct it if there's destroy Sodom and Gomorrah if it was 10 righteous? No. 9, no. 8, no. 7, no. 6, no. All the way down to 1, no. So what did God do? He took Lot out and then destroyed it, just as he took Noah out and destroyed it. And we get into 2 Thessalonians, and we get into people not being taken, snatched away, harpazo, like a eagle grabs its prey. It jerks them off the ground, and they're gone. And we get into this, and later we'll be going through this snatching away and what it's all about and how it relates here, if it does or it doesn't. Then verse 8, vlemati gar ke akoi o dikeos eg katikon. Then it's in parentheses, for, and there's the gar, for by sight and hearing, akoi, we have acoustics, the righteous man, that is Lot, dwelling, enavtis, righteous man, dwelling among them, imerin ex imeris, psikin dikeon, anomos, anomis, ergis, evasanizen, day by day, tormented his righteous 3 soul by their lawless works. Imerin, days, ephemeral, psikin, psyche, soul, psychology, life, studying of life. Anomis, were nomo, and nom has to do with law. And the A is a negative. Astronomy, and this nomi was the law, but the a is a negative, like our English the nomos. They're lawless, ergonomics, tormented. So those words, so Lot was tormented by their lawless works, just as we here are tormented by the lawless works that are around us. If it be in the case of Lot, homosexuality, if you live someplace where this is prevalent and you trying to live a life that's righteous, and it makes it very difficult because these other people are doing what they want to do, and all these things are pervasive, especially if you're on the internet, as you know, and run across pornography, and it pops its ugly little head up here and there and elsewhere. There's all different kinds of things that torment people that are designed to do exactly that. Verse 9, Ide Kyrios esavis ek pirasmon rieste, avikus they is imeran Chrysios holazomenus tirin. But the Lord, Kyrios, knows one to rescue, it's not save, it's not even the word sotir, has nothing to do with delivering, but rescue. Knows how to rescue the pious from pirasmon, tests and temptations, uh, and the unrighteous to keep for a day, Emeron, krisios, crisis, a judgment, judicial term, being punished. So the Lord knows how to rescue, but to keep the ones that are doing this unrighteousness for a punishment. But the rescuing, they're not going to be punished. The righteous will not be punished. They will be judged, I believe it says in other places we mention, but the punishment was served already by our Lord, and but not so for the unrighteous. Verse 10, Malis they tous opiso sarkos in epithemia miasmu porevomenus ke kyriotitos katafronuntas tolmite aphthadis doxas ou tremusi blasphemuntes. And especially, there's the day again, but especially, or and especially, here I have it up here, and unrighteous, the unrighteous I added, and especially, or but especially, the ones, one, going after the flesh, sarkos, the sarcophagus, the flesh, in a desire for defilement, miasmu. A miasma in English is a word, it's infectious particles floating in the air, something that's infectious, defilement, people that are actually seeking after it. It's one thing if a person is sinning, does something that he knows is wrong, does it in the dark, closes the blinds, draws the curtains, goes into a room and does whatever you do. It's evil, and afterwards has guilt, knows it's wrong, and is sorry for it, is one thing. But a person that's doing these same things, but opens up the shades, draws wide the curtains, walks outside, and does these things in public, and not only does them in public, but proclaims these things as the right things. Wow, that's quite different. And desire to do these things. And it says, one's disdaining lordship. They have basically the lordship of God, but then even other things as far as not following after rulers and things that are leading us for good. Daring. They're daring. Daring other people by parading in front of them. They're self-willed. They're doing what they want to do in spite of what God wants. And they do not tremble in blaspheming glories. Blasphemuntes, there's blaspheming, and doxas, the doxology, glory, and here it's the plural. They do not tremble in blaspheming glories. So the things of God, these people are not only, they're out there not only doing these evils against God, they're not even afraid because they think that they're immune from any repercussions for what they're doing. They're doing the right thing. Then it says, Opu angeli ischii. There's a diaresis with the pronunciation on the ypsilon and the iota. Ischii. Ischii. The accent is actually on the ypsilon, so that's where it takes the emphasis. Ischii. But they're each, it's not iski. It's ischii. Ischii. K. Dinami mizones ontes ou ferusi kat afton parakiriou blasphemon krisin. Where angels, angeli, angel, direct transliteration, being to and strengthen greater power, dynami, dynamite, do not bring against them before the Lord a blasphemous case. So they're blasphemy. We see where the devil came in Job, came in front of God and blasphemed the people and things. Uh, doesn't have any problem with going in front of God. But God has a plan for them. They do not bring against them before the Lord. The angels have more, which have more power, but they have more respect for God, the Lord, Kyriou. Creasing, a crisis, again, the derivative. 12. Uti the os aloga zoa physika gegenimena is alosin ke phthoran in is agnousi vlasphemuntes inti phthora avton kataf thorisonte. But these, as one physical, physika, there's a direct transliteration, illogical, aloga, zoa, zoo, living creatures, engendered for conquest and corruption in blaspheming what they know, know not. In their corruption, they shall be laid waste. So these people are getting away with it now, but they're being saved for this special time as the world before Noah was destroyed, and as the world was the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. These people in this situation is going to be laid waste. Peter says, verse 13, Komiumeni miston avikias, idonin igumeni tin en imera trifin, spile ke momi en trifontes entes apates afton, sin nevo humani imin. Carrying a wage of unrighteousness. They have a wage, and they're making money on it of unrighteousness that's profitable. 1. Esteeming the daily delicacy satisfaction. Idomnin, we have a hedonism, a doctrine of pleasure, more or less what these people have, a doctrine of pleasure. What are they? He says they're stains and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions, feasting together with you. So these people, they're reveling in their deceptions. And not only that, but they join in to the churches, to the gathering, the ecclesia, feasting together. So they're among us, those false teachers and false prophets, and these people doing these things. They're among us. And Jesus mentions about how the whole parable of the tare, and how the tare was sent by an enemy, and the weed was put in among the good seeds, and it grew up. And but how Jesus says that the tares are going to be, but at the harvest they will be separated. And this is more or less what it's all about. Ophthalmus ekontes mestus mikalidos ke akatapavstus amartias theleazontes psikas asterictus cardian gegimnasmenin pleonexias ekontes kataras techna. Having eyes, ophthalmus, ophthalmologist, full of an adulterous one, and ceaseless of sin, entrapping unstable psychos, souls, lives. Having, 1, a heart, cardian, cardiac arrest, being exercised for a desire for wealth. They are children of curse. So these people may be in the churches, they may even be leaders, and they have a special place that is prepared for them. Katalipontes tin efthian odon, eplanithisan, exakoluthisantes ti odho tu valam, tu vosor, os misthon avikias, igapisan, leaving behind the straight way, the way of God. They're gone off wandering. Eplanethisan, the planets, the wandering stars. They wandered following after the way of Balaam, the son of Beor. Uh, Balaam was called by Balak, the king of, I think it was Moab. I'm not sure. But anyway, the king, Balak, paid for Balaam to come and curse Israel. And God told him, uh, uh, didn't want him to, but the money was there, and so he went and did it. And you can read that whole story of Balaam in first part of the book of Genesis. And it says that he loved the wage of unrighteousness. So uh, here Peter is bringing in this part that Balaam, and it had to do with loving the wage of unrighteousness. For whatever reason, Balaam did what he did. Maybe it was for money, maybe it was for the fame of being with the king, and everybody looking at him as being somebody important. He followed a different way, wandered. Uh, uh, Eklexin they esken, Idias paranomias, Hypozygion aphonon, and anthropophony, phthengxamenon, ekolise, tin to prophetu paraphronian. But he had rebuke, they, the particle, of his own unlawfulness. A voiceless beast, aphonon, the phone, phonon, sound, a telephone is derivative, and the negative, the opposite, like I mentioned in English, aphonon, voiceless, beast, was the ass that he was writing, spoke in an anthropology, a man's phony voice, uttering a sound, restrained the ranting of the prophetu, the prophet. So God used this beast to communicate with Balaam. Then he continues, Uti isi, pige anidri, nephele ipo lilapos, elavnomene, is ozophos tu scotus, in Iona, and it'll continue in the next column. These are waterless springs, clouds being driven by a tempest. They're worthless. Ones to whom the infernal region of darkness, darkness now here and not the abyss. So it says it's a place of darkness, and everybody there is going to be going there. Place of outer darkness, it mentions, I believe, in Revelation. There's no light. We have the light in heaven. It's not the sun, but it's God, the light from God. Skotos, we have a skotology. It's a study of darkness. Skotoscope, something that sees in the dark. Of the into the, we'll go in it, Aeona, the eon. Teti rite, the eon is kept. They are kept. 218, Iperonka gar mateotitos phthengomeni, the leazosine and epithemias, sarkos, aselgies, tus ontos apophygontus, tus in plani anastrephomenus, for uttering pompous sounds of folly. They entrap by the desires of the flesh, the sarkos, in lewdnesses, the ones really, who, I put the who in italics, who really escaped from the ones behaving in delusion. So these people are doing these things, but there are those that escaped. Apophygontus, not saved, they escaped from the ones behaving this way. It's not rescued either, but escape. The phygontus, a fugitive, and here with the apo, it's escaped. So people escape from this behavior. But then some people will say, well, isn't if I believed in Jesus and I said the sinner's prayer, then am I saved? Well, I mentioned in more and more it's the Greek really goes into delivered, or my delivered. Being delivered is mainly what it says, and the one who remains until the end will be delivered. Rescuing, they're rescued. People are rescued, and escaping. They escape from these behaviors. And then in verse 19 it continues, Eleftherion avtis epangelomeni, avti thuli eparkontes tis phthoras, ogar tis eti te, tuto ke thedhulote, promising freedom to them, they being bondmen of corruption. For by whom anyone has been vanquished, by this one even he is enslaved. So a person can think that they have been freed, but if they are in the corruption, then they're actually back into enslaving again. So this whole thing is interesting and about escaping, and if you are vanquished again, you're enslaved. And can this happen? Can a person that has accepted Christ be vanquished again and enslaved again? Well, I think if that wasn't possible, it wouldn't be mentioning it here, but it is. And it continues with Peter saying, Igar apophigontes ta miasmata tu kosmu, in epigenosi tu keriou ke sotiros I su Christou, tutis they palin emplacentes I tonte, gegonen avtis ta escata hierona ton proton. For if, there's two particles, E and gar, far, gar, and if, E, if they having escaped the figontes, fugitive again, the miasmata, the defilements of the cosmu, in full knowledge, not just saying the sinner's prayer, but having the full knowledge of the Lord. And they know who Jesus is. They've accepted him. They know who he is. He's the Lord and their deliverer, the Savior. The one who brings salvation, if you would, when the King James, or deliverance, Jesus Christ. And it continues, they, and in these, again, I put the things, again, being entangled, they are vanquished. If this happens, if they are again entangled in these things that they were escaped from, the defilements, and they are vanquished, it says, that means they're defeated. They're completely taken over by these things again. They've gone back to their old ways. It says, Peter says, the last, the eschatology, studying the end times, theology, the last has become to them worse than the first, the proton. That's a heavy thing for Peter to say, because I know there's a lot of people that have been entangled the second time, and not only entangled, but vanquished. It's one thing to play around with sin and doing these things that's all talking about the defilements of the world, but being vanquished by them and taken over. People have that happen to them, and there's people out there preaching that can't possibly be, that there's no way that God, once you said the sinner's prayer, then therefore you cannot be entangled. You can't. God is going to have to deliver you no matter what, and these kinds of theologies. But here it's saying this. It doesn't say that they're never going to be able to change again, but the situation here is the last becomes worse than the first, and I think that's the correct thing to be showing people, rather than false hope on you can get away with it. And kriton gar in aftis me epegnokine tin odon tis dikesinis e epignusin epistrepse ek tis parathothesis of tis agios entolis. For it was better for them to have not known the way of righteousness. Whoa! It's better for them to have not known. Why? Well, because I believe that the condemnation on them is going to be greater. So it was better not to have known the way, the odometer, the way of righteousness, than having known to have turned from the holy commandment, agios, hagiography, the study of holiness, the holy commandment delivered to them. Verse 22, sim vevike they aftis to tis alithus parimies kion epistrepses epito idion exerama ke is lusameni is kilisma vorvoru. But has come to pass, there's the they, to them, and I have the word, I'm going to take that out in the second edition, the thing of the true proverb. And then here's what it is. This is a quotation of Proverbs 26:11. A kion, a dog having returned unto its own, idion, ideology, has to do with self, its own, excrement. And a pig bathed, lusameni, the lu, we have deluge with the luge, deluge, wash away, our diluvial, another one. And we also have a lava soap, bathed, a pig bathed unto wallowing in vorvoru, mire. We see this with the prophet Jeremiah being put into the pit with the vorvoru, with the mire, in Jeremiah 38:6. In the first person, of course, the dog having returned into its own excrement. I had a dog panther and black lab. Of course, I'm sure you'll know what I'm going to say, but I get panther, grab a hold and snap the chain on to the collar, and panther would look up at me, know what's going to happen, and the water would be running into the bucket. Panther would be drug out to the whole bucket, put inside, trying to get out. All of a sudden the soap water is on panther and scrubbing him down with the soap water and getting him all cleaned up, and then getting the hose and washing panther off with fresh water and letting him hop out of the tub, and sits there and shakes all the water off nice and clean, and comes into the house and lays around and doesn't stink anymore. But then all of a sudden look around and panther's gone, and then panther comes back. And where was panther? Down at the park, rolling in some other dog's excrement. Now why panther has this desire to roll in another dog's excrement, I don't know. I just cannot imagine it. But then I look and say, well, how much excrement have I went back into and rolled in myself? Am I any different than panther? And, I'm not. And we will be now going into the last chapter of the book of 2 Peter. Peter will continue and gets to be very interesting because it's regarding the last days, as you can see there, and we will be starting that in the next chapter. Hope you will join us, and God bless.